Welcome to my Sleep Science channel. Tonight, as the world slowly becomes quieter around you, take a moment to relax your thoughts, settle into stillness, and allow your imagination to drift gently into the largest ideas humanity has ever imagined. If you enjoy these calm journeys through science, mystery, and the universe, remember to like, subscribe, and tell me where you are watching from. Somewhere tonight, someone else is listening beneath a rainy sky, someone else beneath the glow of city lights, and someone else under a silent desert full of stars. All of us are connected by the same quiet curiosity. For most of human history, people believed there was only one world, one sky, one timeline, and one chain of events connecting every cause to every effect. Ancient civilizations looked upward and imagined the heavens as fixed and orderly. The stars moved in predictable ways, the seasons returned on schedule, and every event seemed tied to another event like links in a great invisible chain. A seed became a tree, rain filled rivers, fire created smoke. Every effect had a cause, and every cause created another effect. This idea became one of the deepest foundations of human thought. Even before science existed in its modern form, people understood that reality appeared to follow rules. If a stone rolled down a hill, something pushed it. If a person became ill, there had to be a reason. Cause and effect became the quiet engine behind nearly every story humanity ever told. But over time, science began opening doors that earlier generations could barely imagine. Telescopes revealed galaxies beyond galaxies. Physics uncovered invisible forces shaping matter itself. Then, slowly, a stranger possibility emerged from the shadows of mathematics and cosmology. What if our universe was not the only universe? What if reality was not a single stage, but an endless collection of worlds existing together like grains of sand scattered across an infinite shoreline? The multiverse idea did not appear all at once. It arrived gradually through different branches of science and philosophy. Some physicists imagined that the rapid expansion after the Big Bang may have created countless separate cosmic regions, each becoming its own universe. Others, studying quantum mechanics, wondered whether every possible outcome of an event might actually happen somewhere. In one universe, a person turns left. In another, they turn right. In one world, a star survives for billions of years longer. In another, it collapses early into darkness. At first, these ideas sounded almost like dreams. Yet the deeper scientists explored reality, the stranger the universe seemed to become. Quantum particles behaved unpredictably. Space itself expanded faster than expected. Black holes bent time and gravity in ways that felt almost impossible. Eventually, the concept of multiple universes stopped feeling entirely absurd to many researchers. It became a serious possibility discussed carefully in physics, mathematics, and cosmology. Now imagine the largest version of this idea. Not just many universes, but infinitely many. Endless worlds stretching beyond comprehension. Universes with different histories, different stars, different versions of Earth, and perhaps different versions of you. Some almost identical to this reality. Others completely alien, governed by unfamiliar laws of physics. At first, infinity sounds peaceful, an endless ocean of possibilities. But when people think carefully about infinite universes, an unsettling question quietly appears. If everything that can happen eventually does happen somewhere, what happens to cause and effect itself? In ordinary life, cause and effect feels stable and comforting. You drop a glass, it shatters. You light a candle, it glows. Every action creates a result. But inside an infinite multiverse, reality becomes harder to organize. If there are endless copies of every event, then every possible outcome exists somewhere already. In one universe, the candle burns normally. In another, a sudden gust extinguishes it instantly. In another, the person never lights it at all. This creates a strange feeling about causality, the idea that one thing leads directly to another. In a single universe, causality behaves like a straight road. One event moves forward into the next. But inside infinity, causality begins to resemble an endless forest of branching paths. Imagine standing before an infinite library. Every book inside describes a different version of reality. Some books differ only slightly. In one, you woke up 5 minutes earlier this morning. In another, a tiny decision years ago changed the course of your life. In another, humanity never invented electricity. Every possible variation exists somewhere within the shelves. Now ask yourself a quiet question. If all outcomes already exist somewhere, are events truly being caused at all? Or are they simply being selected from an infinite collection of possibilities? This is where the multiverse begins transforming not only science, but the way humans think about destiny, choice, time, and reality itself. Cause and effect no longer appears simple. Instead of one chain, there may be endless overlapping chains spreading forever through countless universes. Some thinkers compare this idea to rivers flowing through a vast landscape. In one river, a single choice leads toward success. In another, toward failure. In another, toward an entirely different life. The rivers split constantly, creating more rivers, and those rivers divide again without end. Yet even inside this overwhelming infinity, patterns may still exist. Causes may still matter locally within each universe, even if the larger multiverse contains every possible effect. A falling stone still strikes the ground. Fire still produces heat. Stars still collapse under gravity. The ordinary laws of daily life continue operating inside each separate reality. This tension between local order and infinite possibility lies at the heart of one of the strangest ideas humans have ever imagined. The universe may feel structured and predictable from inside, while beyond our visible horizon reality could be endlessly branching into every possibility imaginable. And so tonight, as your thoughts slowly drift through the quiet darkness, imagine the stars above not as isolated points of light, but as tiny windows into a reality far larger than human intuition was ever designed to understand. Somewhere beyond every galaxy, beyond every black hole, beyond every known law of nature, the infinite may already be unfolding silently in all directions. The chain of cause and effect, once simple and straight, may actually stretch outward forever like an endless cosmic web, delicate, mysterious, and impossibly vast. If the multiverse is truly infinite, then somewhere beyond the observable universe, there may exist endless versions of reality unfolding at the same time. Some of these worlds may resemble our own closely, while others may operate under entirely unfamiliar conditions. This possibility changes the way many people think about causality itself, because cause and effect no longer appears as a single straight chain, but as an endless collection of branching outcomes stretching silently across existence. Somewhere tonight, oceans are moving beneath moonlight, trains are crossing sleeping cities, and millions of people are resting beneath the same sky, while ancient questions about reality continue quietly through the minds of humanity. In ordinary life, cause and effect feels immediate and undeniable. You press a switch, and a room fills with light. You throw a stone into water, and ripples spread outward across the surface. Every moment appears connected to the moment before it. Human civilization itself depends on this assumption. Engineers build bridges because physics behaves consistently. Farmers plant crops because seasons follow predictable patterns. Doctors treat illness because certain actions reliably create certain results. Without causality, daily life would feel impossible. to navigate. Cause and effect is the hidden structure beneath almost every decision people make. It gives reality stability. It creates trust between actions and consequences. But the multiverse changes the emotional feeling of causality in a profound way. Imagine the very first domino in an endless chain. In a normal universe, the domino falls and triggers another domino, and another after that. The sequence moves forward through time in a clear direction. Yet in an infinite multiverse, there may not be just one line of dominoes. There may be endless chains spreading in every direction, each representing different outcomes branching from every possible event. In one universe, the domino falls to the left because of a tiny vibration in the floor. In another, it falls slightly differently. In another, someone stops it before it tips at all. Each possibility creates another chain of events, another history, another future. At first glance, this may sound chaotic, but strangely, the multiverse does not necessarily destroy causality entirely. Instead, it changes the scale at which causality operates. Inside each individual universe, events still unfold according to local rules. Gravity still pulls objects downward. Time still appears to move forward. A person still experiences life moment by moment. The unsettling part emerges only when stepping back far enough to view all universes together at once. Suddenly, the certainty of a single outcome disappears. Instead of one future, there are infinitely many futures existing simultaneously. This raises a question philosophers and physicists have quietly wrestled with for decades. If every possible outcome already exists somewhere in the multiverse, is the future truly being created? Or is consciousness simply moving through one branch of an already infinite structure? Imagine standing inside a gigantic maze, extending forever beyond sight. Every decision creates another corridor. Every possibility already exists somewhere within the maze. From your perspective, choices still feel meaningful because you experience only one path at a time. Yet from a larger perspective, every path may already exist simultaneously. This idea creates a strange tension between freedom and inevitability. Human beings experience choice emotionally. You decide what to say, where to go, whom to love, and how to spend your life. These decisions feel deeply personal. They shape memories, relationships, and identity itself. But in an infinite multiverse, every alternative version of those choices may also happen somewhere else. Somewhere, another version of you stayed silent instead of speaking. Somewhere else, another version took a different train, accepted a different opportunity, or never met certain people at all. Some thinkers find this comforting. They imagine the multiverse as proof that no possibility is ever fully lost. Others find it deeply unsettling because it weakens the feeling that one single timeline matters above all others. The idea becomes even stranger when considering quantum mechanics, the branch of physics that studies the smallest scales of reality. In the microscopic world, particles often behave unpredictably. Scientists can calculate probabilities with extraordinary accuracy, but individual outcomes remain uncertain until measured. One famous interpretation of quantum theory suggests that all possible outcomes actually occur, each within its own branching universe. In this view, reality constantly divides into countless parallel histories every second. Right now, as you listen quietly in the darkness, unimaginable numbers of microscopic events may be branching endlessly into new realities. Tiny quantum fluctuations inside atoms, stars, and particles could be creating infinite variations of existence faster than the human mind could ever comprehend. And yet your personal experience still feels smooth and continuous. You remember yesterday. You anticipate tomorrow. Cause and effect still appears stable because consciousness experiences only one thread of reality at a time. This may explain why ordinary life feels coherent even if the deeper structure of existence is unimaginably complex. Human perception acts like a narrow window, moving through an infinite landscape. We do not see every possible path simultaneously. We see only the sequence unfolding directly before us. There is something almost dreamlike about this possibility. Imagine an endless tree with branches extending forever into darkness. Each branch represents a different chain of events. Some branches remain close together for long stretches. Others diverge dramatically after a single moment. A tiny decision, a delayed reaction, a random accident, or a microscopic quantum event may eventually lead entire universes toward completely different futures. Even history itself begins to feel fragile inside this framework. Empires rise because of small events. Scientific discoveries happen because certain people meet at certain moments. Entire civilizations may depend upon tiny, unpredictable details that could easily have unfolded differently. In a finite universe, these events appear singular and final. But inside an infinite multiverse, every historical possibility may exist somewhere. Somewhere, ancient libraries never burned. Somewhere, lost civilizations survived. Somewhere, humanity reached the stars centuries earlier. Somewhere else, intelligent life never evolved at all. The deeper one thinks about infinity, the more causality begins transforming from a rigid line into something softer and more fluid. Events still connect to other events, but no single chain remains uniquely privileged above all others. And still, despite this overwhelming complexity, human life continues quietly forward. People drink tea beside windows during storms. Children fall asleep while distant traffic hums outside. Cities glow gently beneath the night sky. Stars burn silently above oceans and mountains while the universe expands beyond imagination. Perhaps this is what makes the multiverse idea feel both unsettling and strangely peaceful at the same time. Reality may be infinitely larger than human certainty, yet within each small branch of existence, life still unfolds through ordinary moments, ordinary causes, and ordinary effects. The dominoes continue falling softly through the darkness, one after another, across worlds without end. Long before humanity understood galaxies, atoms, or the movement of planets, people already sensed that time was deeply connected to cause and effect. One event seemed to create another in a steady sequence. Morning became afternoon. Seasons changed gradually. Rivers carved valleys over centuries. Human memory itself depends upon this structure. We remember the past because it appears fixed, while the future feels open and uncertain. But when scientists began studying the origins of the universe, they encountered a strange and difficult idea. Time itself may not have always existed. According to modern cosmology, the observable universe began around 13.8 billion years ago in an extremely dense and hot state, often called the Big Bang. This moment is commonly imagined as an explosion inside empty space, but many physicists describe it differently. Space itself expanded. Time itself unfolded. The universe was not expanding into a pre-existing room. Rather, the fabric of reality itself was stretching and evolving. This creates one of the most unsettling questions imaginable. If time began with the universe, what happened before time existed? At first, the human mind struggles with this idea because ordinary thinking depends upon sequences. Every event seems to require a before and after. Causes appear to happen first, followed by effects. Yet if time itself emerged alongside the universe, then asking what came before the beginning may be like asking what lies north of the North Pole. The question itself may lose meaning. Now imagine this problem inside an infinite multiverse. Instead of one beginning, there may be countless beginnings happening continuously. Some universes may emerge from quantum fluctuations. Others may form from cosmic inflation, the rapid expansion believed to have occurred shortly after the Big Bang. Some theories even suggest universes could bud from black holes. creating entirely new regions of space and time disconnected from their parent cosmos. In this enormous framework, causality becomes far stranger than ordinary experience suggests. Cause and effect normally depends upon time moving forward. But if universes can emerge independently with their own timelines, then the multiverse may not possess one shared universal clock. Imagine an endless ocean filled with bubbles. Each bubble represents a separate universe. Inside every bubble, time flows in its own way. Civilizations rise and disappear. Stars ignite and collapse. Life evolves, dreams, struggles, and vanishes. Yet outside the bubbles, the larger multiverse may not experience time in the same familiar sense at all. Some physicists speculate that what humans call time could simply be a local feature of our own universe, similar to weather patterns inside a single region of Earth. Other universes might experience time differently. In some, time may move slower. In others, faster. In still stranger possibilities, time might not flow continuously at all. This idea deeply affects the meaning of causality. In ordinary life, causes come first. Effects follow afterward. But if multiple universes possess different timelines, then the relationship between causes and effects may vary dramatically across reality. Somewhere, events could unfold in ways that human intuition would find impossible. There are even theoretical models in physics where time may emerge from more fundamental processes. In these ideas, time is not a basic ingredient of existence, but a consequence of deeper structures hidden beneath observable reality. Much like temperature emerges from microscopic particle motion, time itself could emerge from relationships between quantum states. If this is true, causality may also be emergent rather than absolute. This possibility changes the emotional feeling of reality itself. Human beings often imagine the universe as a great machine moving steadily forward through time. But the multiverse suggests something less rigid and far more mysterious. Reality may resemble a vast landscape of interconnected moments rather than one single flowing river. Some philosophers compare this to frames in a film reel. A movie appears continuous when viewed normally, but it is actually composed of countless still images shown rapidly in sequence. Perhaps existence itself works similarly. What humans experience as flowing time may emerge from transitions between states of reality. Inside an infinite multiverse, all possible timelines may exist together like endless pages in an unimaginably vast cosmic archive. This raises another quiet question. If all timelines already exist somewhere, does the future truly come into existence at all? Or does consciousness simply move through one path among infinite possibilities? Certain interpretations of physics suggest that past, present, and future may all coexist in a larger four-dimensional structure sometimes called block time. In this picture, time does not flow objectively. Instead, every moment already exists, while conscious beings experience those moments sequentially. If an infinite multiverse also exists alongside this concept, then reality becomes almost impossible to visualize completely. Endless universes containing endless timelines may all exist together simultaneously beyond human perception. Yet, despite these enormous abstractions, ordinary life continues quietly and predictably. People still wait for sunsets. Snow still melts into rivers. Music still unfolds note by note. Human consciousness remains tied deeply to the sensation of moving through time one moment at a time. This may explain why the multiverse feels both distant and strangely intimate. Its implications are enormous, yet human experience remains local and immediate. Even if infinity surrounds existence, individuals still live through small sequences of causes and effects. A cup falls from a table. Rain taps softly against windows. Someone somewhere tonight is reading beneath a dim lamp. while the universe expands silently beyond every visible star. And perhaps that is one of the most fascinating aspects of the infinite. No matter how vast reality becomes, consciousness continues experiencing life through moments linked together gently by memory, expectation, and the quiet passage of time. The deeper humanity explores the origins of existence, the more causality begins to resemble not a simple line, but a delicate structure suspended inside something far larger than time itself. Every day, human beings make thousands of decisions without noticing most of them. A person chooses when to wake up, which road to take, what words to speak, and whether to pause for a moment or continue forward. Most choices feel small and temporary, yet over time, these tiny decisions slowly shape entire lives. One conversation can create a lifelong friendship. One missed train can alter a future career. A delayed reaction lasting only seconds may completely change the direction of history for an individual person. Cause and effect appears deeply connected to decision-making because human lives unfold through countless chains of actions and consequences. Inside an infinite multiverse, however, the meaning of choice begins to shift in unusual ways. If every possible outcome exists somewhere, then every decision may already branch endlessly into parallel realities. Somewhere, every option is explored. Somewhere, every alternative path continues unfolding quietly beyond observation. Imagine standing at the center of a vast forest at night. Before you are countless paths disappearing between trees in every direction. Some roads remain close together for long distances. Others separate almost immediately. In one direction lies a peaceful future. In another, difficulty and loss. In another, a completely unfamiliar life unlike anything you have known. The multiverse suggests that perhaps all of these paths continue simultaneously. This possibility creates a deep philosophical question that has fascinated thinkers for centuries. If every possible decision eventually happens somewhere, are human beings truly choosing anything at all? At first, this idea can feel unsettling because people naturally connect identity to choice. Decisions help define personality, morality, and purpose. Humans admire courage because it requires choosing action despite fear. They value kindness because compassion involves deliberate behavior. Entire civilizations are built around the belief that actions matter because outcomes depend upon them. But the infinite multiverse complicates this picture. Imagine two nearly identical universes existing side by side. In both, a person stands before an important decision. In one universe, they accept an opportunity. In the other, they refuse it. From inside each universe, the decision feels real and meaningful. Each version of the person experiences their own future unfolding naturally. Yet from the perspective of the larger multiverse, both outcomes exist. Some philosophers argue that this weakens the concept of free will. Others argue the opposite. They suggest that free will may actually consist of the branching itself, the creation of multiple possible futures through conscious decision-making. There is no universal agreement. Even modern neuroscience adds complexity to the discussion. Studies of the brain suggest that certain decisions may begin forming subconsciously before people become consciously aware of them. Tiny electrical signals appear in the brain moments before a person reports making a deliberate choice. This raises another unsettling question. Are choices fully conscious? Or does the brain prepare actions before awareness catches up? Inside the multiverse, these uncertainties become even larger. Consciousness itself may branch alongside reality. Each possible decision may create another version of subjective experience. Some interpretations of quantum physics suggest that microscopic uncertainty influences larger systems in subtle ways. Tiny quantum events inside the brain could theoretically contribute to decision-making, though scientists remain deeply divided on this possibility. Still, the emotional feeling of choice remains powerful, regardless of cosmic theory. Human beings experience life from the inside. People fall in love, regret mistakes, change careers, travel across oceans, and form memories through lived experience. Even if infinite versions of reality exist elsewhere, individuals still feel deeply connected to the specific path unfolding before them. Perhaps this is why the multiverse remains both fascinating and emotionally distant at the same time. Intellectually, it suggests endless alternatives. Yet emotionally, people remain attached to the singular reality they experience directly. A person grieving a loss does not feel comforted simply because another universe may contain a happier outcome. Human emotions remain local. Consciousness experiences only one thread at a time. And yet the existence of infinite possibilities changes the way many people think about fate. Throughout history, humans often believe destiny guided events toward predetermined outcomes. Ancient myths described invisible forces controlling human lives. Some religions imagined divine plans shaping history. Others believed reality followed cycles repeating eternally. The multiverse introduces a quieter and stranger possibility. Perhaps there is no single destiny, but instead endless destinies unfolding simultaneously. In this framework, probability becomes more important than certainty. Rather than one fixed future waiting ahead, reality may constantly branch into countless futures of varying likelihood. This resembles weather systems in some ways. Meteorologists cannot predict the exact movement of every cloud indefinitely because small changes create enormous long-term differences. A tiny shift in atmospheric conditions may eventually influence entire storms. The same principle appears in chaos theory, where small initial changes produce dramatically different outcomes over time. A minor variation in one moment may eventually reshape entire histories. Inside an infinite multiverse, these branching possibilities never fully disappear. Every tiny divergence may continue expanding forever into separate realities. Imagine an infinite web woven across darkness. Each strand represents another sequence of choices and consequences. The web grows endlessly more complex with every passing second. And still, daily life remains surprisingly ordinary. People continue making decisions without calculating cosmic probabilities. Someone chooses to read quietly before sleeping. Someone else watches rain sliding down a window. Somewhere tonight, a student studies beneath dim light while distant traffic hums softly outside. Human life continues through small, intimate moments, even while the larger structure of reality may be unimaginably vast. Perhaps the infinite multiverse does not erase meaning after all. Perhaps meaning emerges precisely because consciousness experiences only one branch at a time. The uniqueness of personal experience may remain emotionally real, even if endless variations exist elsewhere. The human mind was shaped to navigate immediate reality, not infinite possibility, and maybe that limitation is part of what allows ordinary life to feel coherent and beautiful. The stars above continue moving silently through darkness, while countless possible futures drift invisibly beside the one humanity calls reality. Human beings usually imagine life as a single continuous story. A person is born, grows older, gathers memories, makes decisions, and slowly becomes shaped by experience. Identity feels stable because memory connects moments together into one narrative. People remember childhood homes, familiar voices, old fears, and quiet moments that gradually formed the person they became. But in an infinite multiverse, there may not be just one version of any individual. Somewhere, another version of you may have lived in a different city. Somewhere else, another version chose another career, met different people, or followed entirely different dreams. Tiny changes could slowly create enormous differences over time. Imagine two universes nearly identical at first. In both, rain falls gently over the same streets. The same stars shine overhead. The same child grows up listening to the same sounds drifting through open windows at night. Yet one small event unfolds differently. A conversation lasts a few minutes longer. A train arrives late. A chance meeting never happens. Years later, the lives inside those universes may no longer resemble one another at all. This possibility reveals how fragile the structure of causality may actually be. Human beings often imagine destiny as something large and dramatic, but reality may depend heavily upon tiny silent details. Entire futures may emerge from moments that once seemed insignificant. Historians sometimes notice this pattern even within ordinary history. A delayed message, a sudden storm, or a small misunderstanding may alter wars, economies, discoveries, and civilizations. Large outcomes often grow from surprisingly delicate beginnings. Inside the multiverse, these branching chains never disappear. Every alternative path may continue existing somewhere. This creates a strange emotional effect when people think deeply about infinite realities. The self no longer appears entirely singular. Instead, identity becomes something more fluid, more distributed across endless possibilities. Yet, despite this, personal experience remains narrow and focused. Human consciousness appears locked into one stream of events at a time. You remember only your own life. You experience only your own choices. The countless hypothetical versions remain inaccessible, separated by unimaginable distances or dimensions beyond observation. Some thinkers compare this to standing inside one room of an endless hotel. Countless other rooms may exist, each containing slightly different lives and histories. But consciousness experiences only the room it currently occupies. This limitation may be deeply important. If humans could somehow perceive all possible versions of themselves simultaneously, ordinary identity might become impossible to maintain. Regret, ambition, and hope would transform completely. Every success would exist beside another failure. Every tragedy beside another happier outcome. The human mind depends upon continuity and focus. It builds meaning from specific experiences unfolding through time. Perhaps that is why reality feels coherent even if the deeper structure beneath it is infinite. There is also another strange consequence of parallel lives. If infinite universes exist, then statistically some realities may eventually repeat. In an infinite enough cosmos, matter arranged randomly across endless space could theoretically recreate similar worlds again and again. Somewhere unimaginably far away, there could exist another Earth nearly identical to this one. Another sky, another ocean, another civilization asking the same questions about existence. This idea feels almost impossible to emotionally grasp because infinity overwhelms ordinary intuition. Human beings evolved to understand forests, rivers, weather, and social relationships, not endless mathematical realities extending forever. And yet modern cosmology repeatedly forces humanity toward scales that exceed imagination. The observable universe alone contains hundreds of billions of galaxies. Each galaxy may contain billions of stars. Around many of those stars orbit planets hidden in darkness. Even without a multiverse, reality is already staggeringly vast. The multiverse simply extends this vastness beyond familiar limits. Some cosmological theories suggest space itself may continue infinitely beyond the visible universe. If space is truly infinite, and matter arrangements are finite in number, then eventually similar configurations may repeat. This means that somewhere beyond comprehension, another version of this very conversation may be happening beneath another night sky. Perhaps another listener lies awake while distant rain moves across windows. Perhaps another version of humanity wonders quietly about causality and infinity while stars drift silently overhead. The possibility feels eerie, but also strangely peaceful. It suggests that existence may not be isolated or singular. Reality may be filled endlessly with echoes, variations, and parallel histories unfolding together like overlapping melodies. At the same time, infinite repetition introduces difficult philosophical problems. If another version of you exists elsewhere, are they truly you at all? Most people instinctively answer no, because identity seems connected to continuity of consciousness. Even identical twins possess separate awareness despite shared genetics and similar experiences. A parallel version may resemble you perfectly while still remaining a distinct conscious being. This distinction matters because subjective experience appears deeply local. Every person experiences existence from a unique perspective tied to one stream of memory. In this sense, causality still operates intimately within personal life. Memories shape emotions. Experiences alter personality. Choices influence future outcomes. Even inside an infinite multiverse, individuals continue living through connected chains of events. The difference is that these chains may no longer be unique on a cosmic scale. And perhaps that realization changes the emotional atmosphere of existence more than anything else. Human beings often feel pressure to make perfect choices because life appears singular and irreversible. But the multiverse introduces another perspective. Reality may already contain endless variations beyond control or prediction. This does not necessarily make decisions meaningless. Instead, it may reveal that uncertainty and possibility are woven deeply into existence itself. The universe may not be a rigid script moving toward one inevitable outcome. It may be something softer and more open, an endless landscape of branching histories drifting quietly through the darkness. Far above sleeping cities and silent oceans, stars continue burning patiently while countless unseen possibilities unfold beyond the edges of human perception. When people first hear the word infinity, they often imagine empty endlessness, a vast darkness stretching forever without structure or repetition. But mathematics suggests something stranger. In an infinite enough system, patterns may eventually return again and again. Events may repeat. Shapes may reappear. Entire histories could emerge more than once across reality. This idea feels deeply unnatural to human intuition because ordinary life rarely encounters true infinity. A person may walk through forests, cities, deserts, or coastlines, but eventually, every road ends somewhere. Human experience is built around limits. Lifetimes are limited. Resources are limited. Memories fade. Civilizations rise and disappear. Infinity behaves differently. Inside an infinite multiverse, even highly unlikely events may occur endlessly given enough space and enough universes. Somewhere, impossible seeming coincidences may repeat over and over again across countless realities. Imagine throwing a handful of colored sand across an infinite floor. At first, the arrangement appears random, but if the floor truly extends forever and the process repeats endlessly, then eventually certain patterns would appear again. Somewhere, the grains would accidentally form the same arrangement twice. The same unsettling principle may apply to matter itself. Everything humans know, stars, planets, oceans, mountains, living cells, and human brains, is composed of a finite number of particles arranged in different ways. The number of possible arrangements is unimaginably enormous, but still mathematically limited under certain conditions. If space or the multiverse extends infinitely, then eventually those arrangements may repeat. This leads to one of the strangest implications in cosmology. Somewhere unimaginably distant, another region of existence could contain a world extremely similar to Earth. Not metaphorically similar, but physically similar down to astonishing detail. Some physicists have attempted rough calculations suggesting that in an infinite universe, exact repetitions of observable regions may eventually occur at incomprehensible distances. These distances are so vast that human language barely handles them properly. Numbers become meaningless to intuition long before reaching such scales. And yet, the possibility remains. Somewhere beyond endless darkness, another civilization may be asking the same questions about causality and infinity. Somewhere, another night sky may contain stars arranged almost exactly like the ones above Earth. At first, this concept sounds almost comforting, like reality echoing gently through endless space. But deeper reflection reveals unsettling consequences. If realities repeat, what happens to individuality? Human beings tend to view their lives as singular events. Every person experiences consciousness as unique and irreplaceable. But infinite repetition introduces the possibility that countless nearly identical lives may unfold elsewhere. Even history itself could repeat. Some universes might contain civilizations that developed nearly the same technologies, languages, philosophies, and fears. Others may diverge dramatically after tiny differences accumulate over time. A single altered event could slowly reshape an entire world. Imagine two universes beginning almost identically. In one, a scientist makes an important discovery early. In the other, the same scientist becomes ill and never completes the work. Centuries later, the technological development of those civilizations might appear completely different. This reveals something important about causality inside the multiverse. Cause and effect may still operate consistently within each universe, but the larger collection of realities contains endless variations of those chains. Tiny causes may produce enormous long-term consequences. This idea connects closely to chaos theory, the study of systems highly sensitive to initial conditions. In chaotic systems, even microscopic differences can eventually create dramatically different outcomes. Weather is one example. A small variation in atmospheric conditions may slowly influence the development of storms weeks later. Human history behaves similarly in many cases. Minor events sometimes trigger massive cultural or political consequences. Inside an infinite multiverse, every tiny variation may continue unfolding indefinitely into separate histories. Reality begins to resemble an endless branching tapestry woven from infinite causes and effects. Yet repetition introduces another strange possibility. Some histories may not merely resemble one another. They may become nearly identical for extremely long periods before diverging again. This creates a haunting image of existence. Across infinite space, civilizations may rise beneath familiar constellations while unknowingly repeating ancient patterns. People may fall in love, create music, tell stories, build cities, and wonder about the cosmos again and again across endless realities. Perhaps somewhere, another version of humanity already solved mysteries still unknown here. Somewhere else, intelligent life may have vanished long ago before reaching the stars. The multiverse transforms probability into something almost tangible. Every possibility becomes not merely imaginable, but potentially real somewhere. Still, despite these enormous abstractions, ordinary human life remains grounded in local experience. A person sitting quietly beside a window tonight does not experience infinite repetitions directly. They experience one room, one memory, one moment. This may be why causality still feels emotionally stable. Even if countless versions of reality exist elsewhere, individuals remain connected to the specific sequence unfolding within their own conscious experience. Memories still shape identity. Actions still influence personal futures. Consequences still matter locally. In some ways, the multiverse changes perspective more than experience. It suggests that existence may be far larger and less singular than humanity once believed. But it does not erase the intimate texture of daily life. Rain still falls softly across rooftops. Rivers continue flowing toward oceans. Lamps glow quietly in sleeping houses while distant stars burn across the darkness. And somewhere beyond all visible horizons, reality itself may already be repeating in endless variations, like reflections stretching forever between infinite mirrors. Human consciousness is filled with strange experiences that often resist simple explanation. People sometimes remember places they have never visited, dream about events before they happen, or feel an immediate sense of familiarity during entirely new moments. A stranger's face may seem oddly recognizable. A quiet street in another country may feel emotionally familiar, despite never being seen before. Most of these experiences can be explained through ordinary psychology. The brain constantly searches for patterns, compares memories, and fills gaps in perception. Human minds evolved to recognize familiar shapes and predict outcomes because survival depended upon noticing connections quickly. Yet the multiverse introduces another possibility that has fascinated philosophers, writers, and scientists alike. If countless parallel realities exist, could consciousness somehow experience faint echoes from neighboring versions of reality? There is no scientific evidence proving this idea. Modern neuroscience still views memory and dreams primarily as products of brain activity, emotion, and information processing. But the emotional power of the question remains difficult to ignore. Dreams themselves already feel strangely disconnected from ordinary causality. During sleep, the brain creates entire worlds from fragments of memory, emotion, fear, and imagination. Time behaves unpredictably in dreams. Locations shift instantly. People who never met appear together naturally. The laws governing waking reality become softer and less stable. Some dreams feel random and fragmented. Others feel astonishingly vivid and emotionally real. For thousands of years, humans believed dreams carried messages from beyond ordinary reality. Ancient cultures viewed dreams as glimpses into spiritual realms, warnings about the future, or communications from hidden forces. Today, science explains many aspects of dreaming through biology and brain function. During sleep, especially during rapid eye movement sleep, the brain becomes highly active while processing memories and emotions. Neural networks reorganize information gathered during waking life. And yet dreams still feel mysterious. The multiverse deepens that mystery by suggesting that reality itself may already contain endless alternate histories unfolding simultaneously. Somewhere, another version of your life may continue differently. This leads some people to wonder whether certain feelings of familiarity, déjà vu, or emotionally powerful dreams could represent subtle psychological reflections of infinite possibility. Again, there is no evidence for such connections, but the idea persists because it touches something deeply human. People naturally sense that reality may contain hidden layers beyond immediate perception. The observable universe itself already demonstrates how limited human senses truly are. Human eyes detect only a narrow range of light wavelengths. Ears capture only a small band of sound frequencies. Invisible radiation, magnetic fields, and microscopic particles surround everyday life constantly without direct awareness. Science repeatedly reveals that reality is far richer and stranger than ordinary perception suggests. Because of this, the multiverse feels emotionally plausible to many people, even when it remains scientifically uncertain. Human intuition already accepts that enormous unseen systems exist beyond direct experience. There is also another reason dreams connect naturally to discussions about infinite realities. Dreams often blur identity. Inside dreams, people sometimes experience themselves differently. Personalities shift. Familiar places become altered. Time collapses strangely. Entire years may seem to pass within minutes of sleep. In some ways, dreams resemble tiny private multiverses generated inside consciousness itself. A dreaming mind creates alternate scenarios continuously. Different conversations unfold. Different outcomes appear. Different versions of life emerge briefly before dissolving. This similarity has inspired countless stories, imagining dreams as windows into parallel realities. Whether true or not, the comparison reveals something important about the human relationship with causality. Consciousness does not merely observe reality passively. It constantly simulates possibilities. Every decision involves imagining alternate outcomes. Every regret contains awareness of paths not taken. Human minds naturally branch possibilities internally, even without a literal multiverse. Perhaps this is why infinite realities feel psychologically compelling. The structure of thought itself already behaves in branching ways. A person considering an important choice mentally explores multiple futures. One possibility leads toward success, another toward loss, another toward uncertainty. The mind constructs parallel narratives constantly. Inside an infinite multiverse, these imagined alternatives may exist physically somewhere as actual histories unfolding beyond observation. This possibility changes the emotional meaning of memory as well. Human memory is imperfect and selective. People reconstruct the past continuously rather than replaying it exactly. Memories change over time. Details fade. Emotions reshape perception. In some sense, even personal identity already contains multiple versions of the self, layered across time. The person someone was 10 years ago may feel almost like another individual entirely. Beliefs change. Fears disappear. Dreams evolve. Causality inside human consciousness is therefore not purely mechanical. The meaning of events changes depending on interpretation and memory. A difficult experience may later become valuable wisdom. A random encounter may eventually feel destined in retrospect. Humans constantly reorganize the narrative structure of their lives. The multiverse amplifies this fluidity into something cosmic. Instead of one fixed history, reality may contain endless overlapping histories branching quietly through infinity. And still, despite these enormous ideas, nights remain peaceful in their own ordinary way. Someone somewhere tonight is drifting slowly towards sleep while distant thunder rolls across clouds. Another person sits awake beside a dim lamp, listening to quiet music. Across Earth, billions of private thoughts rise and fade beneath the same ancient stars. Human consciousness remains small compared to the scale of the cosmos, yet it continues asking questions large enough to challenge the structure of reality itself. Perhaps that is one of the most remarkable features of the human mind. Tiny creatures living on a small planet inside an ordinary galaxy became capable of imagining infinity, and within that infinity, people continue searching softly for meaning, patterns, memories, and echoes hidden beneath the surface of existence. Human beings spend much of life thinking in terms of probability. People wonder what might happen tomorrow, what could have happened differently yesterday, and which future seems most likely to emerge from present choices. Probability shapes nearly every part of civilization. Weather forecasts estimate storms. Economists predict markets. Doctors calculate risks. Even ordinary conversation depends upon expectations about what is likely or unlikely to occur. In a single universe, probability feels manageable because only one outcome ultimately becomes reality. A coin may land heads or tails, but after it falls, only one result remains visible. One path becomes real, while the others disappear into imagination. The infinite multiverse changes this entirely. If every physically possible outcome eventually happens somewhere, then probability no longer determines which events exist. Instead, probability may only determine how often certain events occur across the larger multiverse. This distinction is subtle, but enormous. Imagine flipping a coin inside an infinite collection of universes. In some realities, the coin lands heads. In others, tails. If the multiverse contains endless branches, then both outcomes become real somewhere. Now expand this idea beyond coins. Somewhere, civilizations survive disasters that destroy others elsewhere. Somewhere, stars form differently. Somewhere, life evolves along entirely unfamiliar paths. Somewhere, tiny quantum fluctuations alter the course of galaxies. Every possibility allowed by the laws of physics may unfold in at least some regions of existence. This transforms causality into something much more complex than ordinary intuition expects. In daily life, people often imagine causes as mechanisms producing one final effect. A seed becomes a tree. A spark creates fire. But inside the multiverse, one cause may generate countless simultaneous outcomes branching endlessly across reality. Reality begins to resemble an infinite tree, whose branches divide continuously in all directions. At first, this concept sounds almost liberating. Every lost possibility survives somewhere. Every alternate future continues unfolding beyond observation. Yet deeper reflection reveals difficult philosophical problems. If every outcome exists somewhere, what does it mean for an event to matter? Some people fear the multiverse makes human action meaningless because every possibility already occurs. But others argue the opposite. They suggest meaning remains deeply personal because consciousness experiences only one branch at a time. Even if infinite realities exist elsewhere, individuals still feel joy, grief, hope, fear, and love locally within their own stream of experience. A sunset remains beautiful, even if countless other sunsets exist elsewhere in the multiverse. This reveals an important difference between cosmic scale and human scale. On the cosmic level, infinite possibilities may unfold simultaneously. But on the human level, consciousness remains focused narrowly within one lived reality. People still experience uncertainty because they cannot observe all outcomes directly. Choices still feel meaningful because subjective awareness moves through one path at a time. There is also another strange implication. If every possible event eventually occurs somewhere, then extremely improbable realities may still exist. Some universes might contain histories radically different from our own. Tiny differences accumulating over billions of years could produce worlds almost impossible for humans to imagine. In some realities, intelligent life may never emerge. In others, civilizations may spread peacefully across galaxies. Somewhere, entirely unfamiliar forms of consciousness may exist beneath skies unlike anything visible from Earth. The multiverse therefore transforms probability from a filter into a spectrum. Rare events do not disappear completely. They simply occur less frequently across infinity. This idea resembles patterns found in nature. On Earth, certain arrangements of clouds, snowflakes, or waves are uncommon. But given enough time, they eventually appear. Rare events become inevitable across sufficiently large scales. The infinite multiverse extends this principle beyond ordinary imagination. Even histories that seem almost impossible may exist somewhere simply because infinity allows every physically possible arrangement enough opportunities to occur. This creates an unusual emotional atmosphere around existence. Reality begins to feel less fixed and more fluid. The universe no longer appears as one singular story moving toward one inevitable conclusion. Instead, existence resembles an endless ocean, filled with branching narratives, unfolding simultaneously. And yet local causality still operates reliably within each universe. Gravity continues shaping stars. Biology continues shaping living organisms. Human actions continue influencing personal futures. The multiverse does not erase cause and effect entirely. Rather, it multiplies the number of possible effects emerging from similar causes. Imagine standing beside a river delta, viewed from high above. One river approaches and then divides into countless channels spreading toward the sea. Each branch follows its own route while remaining connected to the same original source. The multiverse may behave similarly. A single event could produce infinite divergent histories spreading outward endlessly through reality. Quantum physics intensified these discussions during the 20th century because microscopic particles already behave probabilistically before measurement. Certain quantum systems appear to exist in overlapping states mathematically described as superpositions. Different interpretations attempt to explain what this means. Some interpretations suggest probabilities collapse into one observed reality. Others propose that all outcomes continue existing separately in branching universes. If the second possibility is true, then reality may constantly divide into new histories at scales too small for human senses to detect directly. At every moment, unimaginable numbers of microscopic possibilities may unfold silently beneath ordinary experience. And still, human life remains grounded in simple moments. A person waits quietly for sleep while rain taps gently against glass. Another watches distant city lights fading into mist. Somewhere, waves move rhythmically through darkness beneath moonlight. The universe feels calm and continuous from within, even if its deeper structure contains infinite branching possibilities hidden beyond perception. Perhaps this is one reason the multiverse fascinates so many people. It combines enormous abstraction with intimate emotion. It suggests that reality may be unimaginably vast, while still allowing individual lives to feel immediate and meaningful. Far beyond every visible galaxy, countless unseen outcomes may already exist quietly across infinity, each connected by delicate chains of cause and effect stretching endlessly through the dark. Human beings often imagine cause and effect as something mechanical and impersonal, like gears turning inside a machine. One event creates another. Actions produce consequences. The structure appears orderly and objective. But for conscious beings, causality also carries emotional weight. A kind word can change the direction of someone's life. A moment of anger may damage relationships for years. Entire histories sometimes pivot around decisions that once appeared small and temporary. Human life is shaped not only by physical laws, but by emotional chains of cause and effect, unfolding quietly through memory and experience. Inside an infinite multiverse, this emotional dimension becomes more complicated. If countless versions of every possible outcome exist somewhere, what happens to the meaning of responsibility? At first glance, the multiverse may seem to weaken consequence. Somewhere, every mistake is avoided. Somewhere else, every success fails instead. Infinite realities appear to contain endless alternate results branching away from every decision. Yet personal experience remains deeply local. A person still lives within one stream of events. Regret still hurts. Compassion still matters. Loss still feels real. This reveals an important truth about causality in the multiverse. Infinite alternatives may exist cosmically, but consciousness experiences consequences personally. Imagine standing before a calm lake at night. A single stone falls into the water, and ripples spread outward in widening circles. Even if countless other lakes exist elsewhere, the ripples within this lake still move outward through its own surface. Human actions may function similarly. Every decision creates consequences within the specific reality consciousness inhabits. The existence of parallel possibilities elsewhere does not erase local effects. A person who comforts another human being changes something real within their branch of existence. A scientist making a discovery alters the future experienced by countless others in that timeline. Even small actions continue influencing surrounding events through complex networks of causality. This idea becomes especially important when considering morality. Throughout history, ethical systems were built upon the assumption that actions matter because they shape future outcomes. Societies encourage kindness, honesty, and cooperation partly because behavior influences collective well-being. The multiverse does not necessarily remove this structure. Instead, it may reveal that meaning emerges from lived experience rather than cosmic uniqueness. A melody remains beautiful, even if another version exists elsewhere. A friendship still matters even if parallel histories unfold differently in other universes. Human beings experience life through direct emotional continuity, not through awareness of infinite alternatives. Some philosophers compare this to reading a book. Even if countless stories exist in a library, The emotional meaning of one story remains intact while reading it. Characters still matter. Decisions still carry tension. Outcomes still shape emotional experience. The multiverse may function similarly on a cosmic scale. Endless realities may coexist while each conscious observer experiences one unfolding narrative personally. There is also another strange aspect to causality inside infinity. Small causes may become unimaginably powerful over long periods of time. A tiny variation in one moment can eventually reshape entire civilizations. A microscopic genetic mutation may alter evolution. A delayed message may change history. A brief encounter between strangers could influence generations far into the future. This sensitivity reveals how delicate reality may actually be. Human beings often imagine history as driven by massive forces alone: wars, empires, natural disasters, and revolutions. But many large events emerge from countless smaller causes interacting together. Inside the multiverse, every variation of these interactions may continue branching endlessly. Reality resembles a web more than a line. Each action sends subtle effects outward through networks too vast to fully trace. Even modern science supports this interconnected view. Ecosystems depend upon fragile balances. Climate systems respond to countless interacting variables. Economies shift because of millions of individual decisions occurring simultaneously. The deeper humanity studies complex systems, the more causality appears distributed rather than isolated. The multiverse extends this complexity to cosmic scales. Perhaps every universe influences the probability structure of existence itself in ways still beyond scientific understanding. Some speculative theories even suggest quantum systems may remain subtly connected across realities through deeper hidden frameworks. These ideas remain highly theoretical, but they reveal how modern physics increasingly challenges simple mechanical pictures of reality. Cause and effect may not behave like rigid chains at all scales. Instead, causality may emerge from networks of relationships unfolding across time, matter, and probability. And still, despite these enormous abstractions, ordinary human experience remains grounded in familiar emotional truths. People remember kindness for decades. They carry grief quietly through years. They form families, create art, and build lives through accumulated moments of cause and effect. A child hearing comforting words before sleep experiences real emotional change, regardless of what occurs elsewhere in the multiverse. Perhaps this is why human meaning survives even within infinite realities. Consciousness gives way to experience locally. The multiverse may contain endless possibilities, but awareness remains anchored to one lived sequence of events. Within that sequence, actions still shape futures. Choices still influence others. Consequences still ripple outward gently through time. Late tonight, while oceans move beneath moonlight and distant cities glow softly against the darkness, billions of invisible chains of causality continue unfolding across Earth. People are speaking words that will be remembered years from now. Tiny decisions are quietly reshaping future lives. Somewhere, someone changes direction entirely because of one brief conversation. The infinite multiverse may contain countless alternate histories, yet within every single branch, existence still unfolds through delicate moments connected together by cause and effect. And perhaps that is what gives reality its strange combination of fragility and beauty. Even inside infinity, every moment still touches the next, like falling dominoes moving softly through the dark. For most of human history, people searched for certainty in the universe. Ancient astronomers tracked the movement of stars because the heavens appeared stable and predictable. Philosophers believed reality followed discoverable rules. Early scientists imagined the universe as a vast clockwork machine, where every event emerged precisely from the events before it. This way of thinking became especially powerful after the scientific revolution. Mathematics allowed humans to predict eclipses, calculate planetary motion, and eventually harness electricity, chemistry, and engineering with astonishing accuracy. Cause and effect appeared dependable. Reality seemed understandable. The more humanity learned, the more confidence grew. If enough information could be gathered, perhaps everything could eventually be predicted. This idea reached one of its most famous forms in the 18th century, when mathematician Pierre-Simon Laplace imagined a hypothetical intelligence that could know the position and movement of every particle in the universe simultaneously. According to this idea, if such an intelligence existed, the entire future and past could theoretically be calculated perfectly. The universe would become completely deterministic. Every choice, every storm, every human life, and every future event would already be mathematically inevitable. For a time, many scientists believed reality might truly function this way. Then modern physics arrived and quietly shattered that certainty. Quantum mechanics revealed that the microscopic world does not behave like a perfectly predictable machine. Instead, particles often behave probabilistically. Scientists can predict statistical patterns with incredible precision, but individual outcomes remain uncertain. Electrons do not orbit atoms neatly like planets around stars. Quantum particles behave more like clouds of probability. Tiny events appear fundamentally unpredictable until measured. This discovery deeply disturbed many physicists because it challenged centuries of assumptions about causality. Albert Einstein himself disliked the idea of fundamental randomness, famously objecting that God does not play dice with the universe. Yet, experiment after experiment continued supporting quantum uncertainty. Reality, at its deepest levels, appeared less certain than humans expected. The multiverse intensifies this uncertainty even further. Instead of one future unfolding inevitably, infinite futures may branch continuously from every quantum possibility. Certainty dissolves into endless probability. Imagine standing inside a vast hall filled with mirrors stretching endlessly in every direction. Each reflection represents another possible version of events. Some remain nearly identical. Others diverge dramatically over time. The more deeply one explores the multiverse, the more difficult it becomes to identify a single uniquely privileged reality. This creates an emotional shift in the human relationship with knowledge itself. People naturally seek stable explanations because certainty feels comforting. Predictability allows civilizations to function. Farmers depend upon seasons. Engineers depend upon physical laws. Families depend upon trust and memory. Yet modern cosmology increasingly suggests that reality may contain layers of uncertainty far beyond ordinary intuition. Even time itself may not behave absolutely. Einstein's theory of relativity revealed that time changes depending on speed and gravity. Clocks move differently near massive objects. Observers traveling at different velocities experience time differently. The universe already behaves in ways that challenge common sense long before the multiverse even enters the discussion. The infinite multiverse simply extends this instability to a cosmic scale. Perhaps no single observer ever possesses a complete view of reality. Every conscious being experiences only a limited branch within an unimaginably larger structure. This idea can initially feel unsettling because humans prefer clear foundations. But uncertainty also carries a strange beauty. A fully deterministic universe would resemble a finished script where every event was inevitable from the beginning. Mystery would disappear completely. Instead, reality appears filled with openness, branching possibilities, and hidden complexity. Some philosophers argue that uncertainty may even be necessary for meaning. Hope depends upon unknown futures. Curiosity depends upon incomplete knowledge. Discovery requires mystery. The multiverse transforms certainty into something softer and more flexible. Instead of one rigid future moving toward inevitability, existence becomes a vast field of possibilities, continuously unfolding. And yet, local stability still exists. Human beings wake each morning beneath familiar physical laws. Gravity still holds oceans against Earth. Fire still produces warmth. Memory still links yesterday to today. The universe feels stable from within, even if its deeper structure contains infinite uncertainty. This may be one of the most fascinating aspects of consciousness. Human perception filters overwhelming complexity into coherent experience. The brain simplifies reality constantly, organizing sensations into understandable patterns. Without this filtering process, existence might feel chaotic and impossible to navigate. The multiverse reminds humanity that reality itself may be far more complex than conscious experience reveals. Somewhere tonight, astronomers are quietly observing distant galaxies whose light traveled millions of years before reaching Earth. Somewhere else, physicists are studying equations describing dimensions and particles too small to see directly. Human civilization continues searching patiently for understanding even while certainty slowly fades at the edges. Perhaps complete certainty was never truly possible. The deeper science explores existence, the more reality resembles an endless horizon receding gently into mystery. And maybe that mystery is not something to fear. Perhaps the infinite multiverse reveals that uncertainty is woven naturally into existence itself. Like darkness between stars or waves, moving endlessly across the sea, far beyond every visible galaxy. Infinite possibilities may already drift quietly through reality, while conscious beings continue building meaning inside their small local corners of the cosmos. The universe remains vast, uncertain, and impossibly beautiful, suspended between order and infinity beneath the endless silence of the stars. When people think about reality, they usually assume that the laws of physics are universal. Gravity pulls objects together. Light travels at a constant speed. Matter behaves in predictable ways. These assumptions form the foundation of everyday experience, allowing civilizations to build technology, explore space, and understand nature with increasing precision. But the idea of a multiverse introduces a far more unusual possibility. What if the laws of physics are not fixed across all existence? What if different universes follow different rules entirely? In some regions of a multiverse, gravity might be stronger or weaker than in our own universe. In others, time might flow differently, or not flow in a recognizable way at all. Matter itself could behave in ways that would appear impossible from our perspective. This concept challenges the deepest assumptions about cause and effect. In our universe, causality depends on stable laws. A cause produces a consistent effect because the underlying rules never change. If gravity suddenly stopped working or changed unpredictably, the chain of cause and effect would collapse into confusion. Yet across an infinite multiverse, stability may not be guaranteed everywhere. Imagine a universe where electromagnetic forces are slightly different. Atoms might not form stable structures. Without stable atoms, chemistry as we know it would not exist. Without chemistry, stars might never ignite properly. Without stars, galaxies and planets might never form in recognizable ways. Now imagine another universe where gravity is extremely strong. Matter could collapse too easily, forming dense objects without allowing stable planetary systems. Life as we understand it might become impossible. In contrast, there may also be universes where conditions are just right for complexity to emerge, similar to our own cosmic environment. This idea leads to an important question in cosmology. Why does our universe have the specific set of physical constants that allow stars, planets, and life to exist? One explanation is the anthropic principle, which suggests that we observe these conditions simply because only universes with stable conditions allow observers to exist in the first place. In an infinite multiverse, countless universes may exist with wildly different physical laws. but only a small fraction would contain structures capable of supporting observers capable of asking such questions. This shifts the meaning of cause and effect in a subtle way. Instead of one universal set of causes producing one predictable set of effects, reality becomes a collection of different rule sets, each producing its own internal version of causality. Inside each universe, cause and effect remain consistent. But across the multiverse, the relationship between cause and effect may vary dramatically depending on the underlying laws. In some universes, time itself might behave non-linearly. Events could be less ordered, with effects not strictly following causes in a familiar sequence. In others, space might have different dimensions, altering how forces interact and how structures form. Some speculative theories even consider universes where constants of nature vary slightly, producing small but meaningful differences in how reality behaves at every scale. If this is true, then the multiverse is not just a collection of parallel worlds, but a vast landscape of possible physics. Each universe becomes a different experiment in the structure of existence. Cause and effect, in this view, is not a single rule applied everywhere. It is a local pattern emerging from the deeper structure of each universe. This idea also changes how stability is understood. Stability is not guaranteed across all existence. It is something that arises only where conditions allow consistent relationships between events. Human experience depends heavily on this stability. The ability to remember the past and predict the future relies on consistent laws of physics. Without this consistency, consciousness as it is known might not emerge in the first place. This may be another reason why observers always find themselves in universes with relatively stable conditions. Only such environments allow the development of complex systems capable of reflection and awareness. Yet even within stable universes like our own, small variations still exist at quantum levels. These tiny uncertainties introduce subtle unpredictability into otherwise consistent laws. The multiverse magnifies this into an enormous spectrum of possible realities. Some universes may be almost identical to ours. Others may differ so drastically that familiar concepts like time, matter, or energy lose meaning entirely. And still, the idea of causality remains present in each of them, but expressed in different forms. Even in strange universes, something still influences something else. Relationships between events still exist, even if those relationships do not resemble anything familiar. Perhaps causality is more fundamental than the specific laws that express it. It may be the underlying structure that allows any reality, no matter how strange, to remain coherent within its own rules. Laid across countless universes, stars may shine under alien skies governed by unfamiliar physics. Yet within each of them, local sequences of cause and effect continue unfolding quietly, forming their own unique histories across infinite space. If the multiverse is truly infinite, then reality may resemble something like an enormous library containing every possible version of events. Not a library made of books in the traditional sense, but a structure where each entry represents a complete history of a universe, unfolding from its earliest conditions to its final state. In this view, cause and effect still exist, but they are no longer seen as a single chain stretching forward in one direction. Instead, they become descriptions inside each entry of the library, explaining how one moment leads to another within that specific version of reality. Each universe becomes a complete narrative. One entry might describe a cosmos where galaxies form early and evolve quickly into dense clusters. Another might describe a universe where star formation is rare and scattered, producing a quieter and darker sky. Another might contain histories where intelligent life never emerges at all, while another might contain civilizations that span entire galaxies. Every possible outcome allowed by physical law may exist somewhere in this vast collection. This idea changes how people think about possibility. In everyday life, possibilities feel open, but limited. A person chooses between a small number of options, and one path becomes reality, while others disappear into imagination. But in an infinite library of outcomes, nothing is truly lost. Every alternative is recorded somewhere as a complete unfolding history. However, this does not mean that all outcomes are equally accessible from within a single universe. From the perspective of an observer, only one entry is ever experienced directly. Consciousness reads only one book at a time, moving line by line through a single unfolding sequence of events. This creates a separation between existence as a whole and experience as it is lived. The multiverse may contain everything, but awareness remains local. Inside each universe, causality still behaves like a structured narrative. Events follow one another in a consistent order. Actions produce consequences. Time moves forward in a way that allows memory, prediction, and understanding. The library metaphor helps clarify this distinction. Each book is internally consistent. Characters in one story do not experience events from another. Yet all stories exist simultaneously within the same library space. This raises a subtle question about meaning. If every possible outcome exists somewhere, what makes any single outcome significant? One answer is that significance is not determined by the total number of outcomes, but by the experience within a specific sequence. A story remains meaningful to the reader, even if countless other stories exist beside it. Emotions arise from continuity, not from uniqueness on a cosmic scale. In the same way, causality inside one universe retains its importance because it structures lived experience. A decision still matters because it shapes the next moment within that particular reality. The infinite library does not erase structure. It multiplies it. Every variation becomes its own structured narrative, complete with its own internal logic of cause and effect. Some narratives may be extremely similar, differing only in small details. Others may diverge dramatically after a single moment, creating entirely different histories over vast scales. These differences accumulate into radically distinct universes. This leads to another interesting idea. If every possible history exists, then the space of all histories forms a kind of structure that can be studied abstractly. Some physicists and mathematicians explore related concepts when considering configuration spaces, probability landscapes, and the mathematical structure of possible states. In these frameworks, reality is not just what happens, but the collection of all that could happen under given rules. The infinite multiverse extends this concept beyond imagination. It suggests that reality may not be a single story, but a complete set of all stories consistent with underlying laws of physics. Even randomness takes on a different meaning in this context. What appears random from within one universe may simply be one selection among countless possibilities existing elsewhere. Cause and effect remains valid locally, but globally it becomes part of a much larger structure of potential outcomes. This perspective also changes how people think about time. Instead of a single timeline moving forward, there may be countless timelines existing side by side, each representing a different complete history. Some may begin in similar ways and diverge gradually. Others may differ from the very beginning, yet all remain part of the same broader structure of possible existence. Despite these abstract ideas, the human mind continues to experience reality in a simple linear fashion. A moment follows another moment. Thoughts arise and fade. Memories connect the present to the past. The future remains unknown. This simplicity may be essential for consciousness to function. An awareness that perceived all possible outcomes simultaneously might struggle to form coherent experience at all. Instead, consciousness seems designed to navigate one narrative at a time, allowing meaning to form through sequence and continuity. In this way, the infinite library remains hidden behind perception. Only one book is ever open at once. And yet, somewhere beyond direct experience, countless other versions of every moment may exist quietly, each unfolding its own version of cause and effect within its own complete story of reality. Across human history, people have often described certain moments in life as feeling destined. A chance meeting that leads to a lifelong relationship, a sudden opportunity that appears at exactly the right time, a sequence of events that seems too perfectly aligned to be purely random. Even in ordinary life, individuals sometimes look back and feel as though certain outcomes were meant to happen. From a scientific perspective, these feelings are usually explained through pattern recognition and hindsight. The human brain is naturally inclined to find connections between events, especially when looking backward through memory. When people already know the outcome of a situation, the sequence of events leading up to it can appear more intentional or structured than it actually was at the time. Yet inside the framework of an infinite multiverse, the idea of perceived destiny takes on a different kind of meaning. If every possible outcome exists somewhere, then every life path includes moments where events align in extremely precise ways. In some universes, certain sequences of cause and effect may unfold in patterns that feel unusually smooth or coherent from the perspective of an observer inside them. This does not imply any guiding force shaping reality towards specific outcomes. Instead, it suggests that within infinite variation, some histories will naturally contain chains of events that appear highly ordered or meaningful when viewed from within. Imagine walking through a vast forest where countless paths branch in every direction. Most paths are ordinary, filled with small turns and gradual changes. But occasionally, a path may appear unusually direct, where each step seems to lead naturally toward the next clearing without obvious interruption. From inside that path, the journey may feel intentional, even if it is simply one of many possible routes. The multiverse allows for all such paths to exist simultaneously across different versions of reality. This raises an important distinction between meaning and structure. Structure refers to how events are connected through cause and effect. Meaning refers to how those connections are experienced and interpreted by consciousness. Two identical sequences of events may exist in different universes, but the way they are felt from within may vary depending on memory, emotion, and context. This is one reason why the feeling of destiny is so powerful. It is not only about what happens, but about how events are remembered and interpreted as they unfold into personal narrative. Human consciousness naturally organizes experience into stories: beginning, middle, and end, struggle and resolution, loss and recovery. These narrative structures help the mind make sense of continuous experience. When a sequence of events fits neatly into this internal storytelling framework, it may feel more significant or fated than events that appear random or disconnected. Inside an infinite multiverse, there are countless histories where events align in ways that perfectly match this narrative structure. There are also countless histories where events appear chaotic, fragmented, or unresolved. Both types of histories exist equally within the larger structure of reality. Another layer of this phenomenon comes from probability itself. In any complex system, rare combinations of events will occasionally occur. Over large enough scales, even extremely unlikely sequences become inevitable somewhere. This means that in an infinite multiverse, every kind of coincidence, including those that feel deeply meaningful or perfectly timed, will appear in some regions of existence. From the perspective of an individual observer, such moments can feel extraordinary because they stand out against the background of ordinary expectation. However, from a broader perspective, they are simply part of the full spectrum of possible outcomes. The emotional experience of destiny may therefore arise not from external guidance, but from the intersection of probability, memory, and narrative structure within consciousness. There is also a deeper psychological aspect to this feeling. When people experience coherence in life events, The mind tends to assign significance to that coherence. A sequence of meaningful coincidences can create a sense of order in a world that often feels uncertain. This sense of order is comforting because it reduces perceived randomness, even if the underlying reality is filled with infinite variation. The human mind seeks patterns that provide stability and understanding. In this way, the feeling of destiny may serve an important emotional function, helping consciousness interpret complex sequences of events as meaningful rather than chaotic. The multiverse does not remove this experience. Instead, it reframes it. Rather than a single predetermined path, there are infinite paths, some of which naturally appear more ordered or significant from within. Cause and effect still operates locally within each universe, but the emotional interpretation of those chains of events adds another layer of perceived meaning. Somewhere across infinite space, countless versions of similar moments unfold. Some feel ordinary, some feel random, and some, from the perspective of those who live through them, feel quietly destined, as if the universe itself arranged events into a coherent unfolding story. Yet beneath all of it, reality continues its silent branching, extending cause and effect through endless variations, without needing direction, only possibility. Coincidences are moments when unrelated events appear to align in ways that feel meaningful or surprising. A person thinks about someone they have not spoken to in years, and that person suddenly sends a message. A forgotten memory resurfaces at the exact moment it becomes relevant again. Two completely separate events appear to intersect at just the right time, creating the impression of hidden connection. In everyday life, coincidences are usually explained through probability. Given enough time and enough events, unusual alignments will eventually occur. Human beings experience only a small portion of all possible events, so rare combinations can feel more significant than they statistically are. However, in the context of an infinite multiverse, coincidences take on an entirely different scale. If every possible arrangement of events exists somewhere, then every coincidence that can occur will occur not just once, but an infinite number of times across different regions of reality. Some universes will contain histories where certain events align in extremely precise ways. Others will contain histories where similar events never align at all. Between these extremes lies an endless spectrum of variation. This creates an interesting shift in how coincidence is understood. Instead of being rare exceptions within a single timeline, coincidences become natural features of a vast landscape of possibilities. Imagine an infinite ocean filled with drifting particles. Over time, currents bring some particles together in temporary clusters. These clusters may appear meaningful from within, even though they arise from simple movement and interaction. In a similar way, events within universes may cluster into patterns that seem unusually connected from the perspective of observers inside them. The feeling of coincidence is therefore closely tied to perception. Human consciousness is highly sensitive to patterns. The brain constantly searches for connections between events, even when those connections are not causally related. This tendency evolved because recognizing real patterns was crucial for survival. Early humans who noticed correlations in nature, weather, animal behavior, or social interaction were more likely to adapt successfully. As a result, the mind is naturally inclined to interpret certain alignments as meaningful. Inside an infinite multiverse, this interpretive tendency interacts with an enormous space of possible events. Some sequences of events will naturally appear striking or unusual from within a given universe, simply because they stand out against the background of more common experiences. In other universes, different sets of coincidences will emerge, each shaped by local conditions and histories. From a broader perspective, nothing needs to be directed for coincidences to appear. They arise naturally wherever complex systems evolve over time with many interacting components. This is especially true in systems governed by layered chains of causality. Small variations can propagate forward and combine in unexpected ways, creating outcomes that feel highly specific or meaningful. Weather systems, biological evolution, and even social dynamics all demonstrate how complex interactions can produce surprising alignments without any external guiding force. The multiverse simply extends this principle beyond a single environment into an infinite range of possibilities. Another important aspect of coincidence is timing. Events that occur close together in time are more likely to be perceived as connected. If two unrelated events happen days apart, they may be seen as separate. If they happen within moments of each other, the mind is more likely to link them. Time therefore plays a key role in shaping the feeling of coincidence, even when no causal relationship exists between events. Inside different universes, the flow and structure of time may vary slightly, which could influence how often certain alignments are experienced from within. Yet even without changes to time itself, the sheer number of events in any sufficiently complex universe ensures that unusual combinations will occasionally emerge. In an infinite multiverse, these combinations are not exceptions but inevitable features of the full structure of reality. From the perspective of causality, most coincidences do not represent direct cause and effect relationships between the events that appear linked. Instead, they often arise from shared underlying conditions that allow multiple independent processes to converge at a single point. This convergence creates the illusion of intentional alignment. Human beings often interpret such moments as meaningful because they interrupt expected patterns. When reality behaves in a way that feels statistically unlikely, the mind assigns additional significance to it. In this sense, coincidence is as much about interpretation as it is about structure. The infinite multiverse provides a framework where every possible interpretation of events has a corresponding set of realities, where those interpretations feel natural. Some universes will feel highly ordered, filled with sequences that appear tightly connected. Others will feel more random, with events unfolding in ways that seem disconnected or unpredictable. All of these variations exist within the broader landscape of possible existence. And yet, from within each universe, experience remains consistent. A person still wakes up, moves through the day, encounters events, and reflects on what has happened. Coincidences still feel surprising when they occur, regardless of how many other versions of reality exist elsewhere. The emotional impact of coincidence therefore remains local, even in an infinite framework. Far across the multiverse, countless chains of events continue to unfold independently, sometimes converging in ways that appear meaningful from within, sometimes drifting apart without recognition. And through it all, causality continues to operate quietly beneath the surface, connecting events within each universe while allowing endless variation across the larger structure of existence. When people think about infinity, they often imagine something without shape or structure, a concept that stretches beyond comprehension and dissolves into abstraction. But in mathematics, infinity is not simply emptiness. It often behaves like a structured idea, governed by rules that remain consistent even when extended beyond ordinary limits. In the context of an infinite multiverse, this becomes especially important for understanding cause and effect. If reality contains infinitely many universes, then the total set of possible events begins to resemble a kind of mathematical landscape, not a physical map, but an abstract structure describing every possible configuration of matter, energy, time, and information that could exist under different conditions. Within this structure, causality can be seen as relationships between states. One state leads to another within each universe, forming sequences that define histories. But across the broader infinite collection, these sequences exist as patterns distributed through a vast space of possibilities. This means that cause and effect may have both a local and a global interpretation. Locally, Within a single universe, causality behaves like a chain of connected events unfolding in time. Globally, across the multiverse, causality becomes a description of how different possible histories relate to one another in terms of structure and probability. This dual perspective allows for a deeper way of thinking about reality. Imagine a vast mathematical grid extending in all directions. Each point on the grid represents a possible universe. Some points are close to each other, representing universes with similar laws or similar histories. Other points are far apart, representing radically different forms of existence. Movement across this grid represents variation in conditions, outcomes, or initial states. In this sense, infinity is not just endless quantity, but also endless arrangement. Every possible configuration of a universe can be thought of as occupying a position within this abstract space. Some configurations allow for stable structures like stars and planets. Others do not. Some allow for complexity and life. Others remain simple or collapse quickly into disorder. The mathematics of such a space does not require physical realization of all points in a traditional sense. Instead, it provides a framework for understanding possibility itself. Within this framework, probability becomes a measure of how frequently certain types of structures appear across the space of all possible configurations. This connects deeply with how scientists use mathematics to describe reality. Equations do not merely describe what exists. They often describe what could exist under different conditions. In this way, mathematics becomes a language of possibility, not just observation. The multiverse extends this idea further by suggesting that many of these possibilities may not remain purely abstract, but may actually correspond to real regions of existence. If this is true, then causality is embedded within a vast mathematical structure that includes every possible history. Each universe follows its own internal rules, but those rules are themselves part of a larger landscape of mathematical relationships. This creates a layered view of reality. At the smallest level, there are events connected by cause and effect. At a larger level, there are entire histories shaped by sequences of events. At an even larger level, there is the space of all possible histories, each one representing a complete unfolding of a universe. Infinity, in this sense, becomes a structure rather than a void. It contains organization, even if that organization is too large to perceive directly. Another way to understand this is through patterns. Even in simple mathematical systems, infinite processes can produce repeating or self-similar structures. Fractals are one example, where patterns repeat at different scales, creating complexity from simple rules. The multiverse may behave in a conceptually similar way, where simple underlying principles generate an enormous diversity of outcomes across infinite scales. From this perspective, cause and effect is not replaced by infinity. Instead, it is expressed through it. Every cause still leads to effects within each universe, but those relationships exist within a much larger mathematical field of possibilities. This field does not eliminate structure. It expands it. It suggests that reality is not just what happens, but the total space of everything that could happen under consistent rules. Even randomness can be understood mathematically as part of this structure. What appears random from within one universe may correspond to a well-defined distribution across the larger space of possibilities. This does not remove mystery. Instead, it shifts mystery to a higher level. Instead of asking why a specific event occurred, one might ask why the space of possibilities has the structure it does, and why certain patterns appear more frequently than others. These questions remain open, yet even without final answers, the mathematical view of infinity provides a sense of order within apparent boundlessness. It suggests that even infinite variation can still follow underlying principles, even if those principles operate beyond direct human intuition. And within each universe, life continues quietly. Stars form, evolve, and fade. Planets orbit in steady cycles. Conscious beings observe, reflect, and attempt to understand the structure around them. Across the infinite landscape of possibility, causality continues to operate locally in every world, while simultaneously participating in a vast mathematical structure that contains all possible versions of existence. When people imagine time, they often picture it as a straight line moving steadily from past to present and into the future. Each moment follows the one before it in a continuous sequence. Cause leads to effect, and effect becomes the next cause, in an unbroken chain. But inside the framework of an infinite multiverse, this simple picture begins to change. Instead of a single line, time may behave more like a river system. A river begins as a single stream, but as it flows, it can divide into smaller channels. These branches may separate for long distances, following different paths through the landscape. Some branches may later converge again, while others continue independently toward distant regions. In a similar way, timelines in a multiverse may split at key moments. A decision, a random event, or a microscopic fluctuation may cause reality to branch into multiple futures. Each branch continues forward as a complete timeline, developing its own sequence of events, its own history, and its own outcomes from within any single branch. This splitting is not directly visible. Consciousness experiences only one continuous path. Memory connects past moments into a stable narrative, creating the impression of a single, unified timeline. But from a broader perspective, reality may contain countless diverging versions of that same moment unfolding simultaneously. Each branch preserves its own internal causality. Events still follow one another consistently. Cause and effect remain intact within each timeline. What changes is the number of possible futures emerging from each present moment. A single point in time may lead to many different outcomes, each realized in a separate branch of existence. This creates a structure that resembles an endlessly branching tree. Each branch splits into further branches, and those branches split again, continuing without end. Over time, the structure becomes increasingly complex, filled with diverging paths extending across infinite space. In this view, causality is not destroyed. It is multiplied. Every cause produces not one effect, but a range of effects distributed across different timelines. Each effect becomes the starting point for further branching, creating an expanding network of possible histories. This idea is closely related to certain interpretations of quantum mechanics, where microscopic events do not have a single predetermined outcome until observed. Instead, multiple potential outcomes exist in a state of superposition, each with a certain probability. One interpretation suggests that all of these outcomes may continue existing, each in its own separate branch of reality. If this is true, then every moment in time may contain hidden layers of divergence unfolding beneath observable experience. Even small events may contribute to long-term branching structures. A slight variation in a particle, a minor difference in energy, or a subtle interaction between forces may eventually grow into large-scale differences across entire histories. Over vast stretches of time, these small divergences accumulate into entirely separate worlds. Yet, from the perspective of an observer, time still feels continuous. This is because consciousness experiences only one branch at a time. Memory preserves continuity within that branch, creating the sensation of a stable timeline, even if many alternatives exist elsewhere. This separation between local experience and global structure is one of the most important aspects of the multiverse idea. It explains how reality can appear orderly and predictable from within, even if it contains enormous hidden complexity beyond perception. It also reframes the concept of choice. Every decision may be a branching point where multiple futures emerge. Each future unfolds independently, shaped by the same initial conditions but diverging through different sequences of events. In this sense, the present moment becomes a crossroads containing countless invisible directions. Some paths may remain similar for long periods before gradually separating, Others may diverge immediately after the branching occurs. Across all branches, causality remains consistent, but the total number of causal chains expands continuously. This creates a universe that is not fixed, but dynamically unfolding in multiple directions at once. Despite this complexity, each individual branch maintains its own coherence. Physics continues to operate consistently. Objects behave according to local laws. Energy flows, structures form, and systems evolve in stable ways within each timeline. The branching does not break reality, it extends it. From a distance, the entire multiverse may resemble a vast river delta seen from above, where a single flow divides into countless channels spreading outward across an infinite landscape. And within each channel, life continues its quiet progression through time, unaware of the countless other paths unfolding alongside it. Within an infinite multiverse, where timelines branch continuously and countless versions of events unfold in parallel, one of the most subtle questions arises about the role of the observer itself. If reality contains endless possible outcomes, why does experience always feel singular, focused, and linear? From the inside of consciousness, life never appears as a collection of branching possibilities. Instead, it feels like a single, uninterrupted flow. Moments arrive one after another. Thoughts form and fade. Memories create continuity, linking past experiences into a stable sense of identity. This creates an interesting contrast between the structure of reality as described in multiverse theories and the way reality is actually experienced. Even if countless timelines exist, awareness appears anchored to one path at a time. This is sometimes described as the perspective of a single observer moving through a vast landscape of possibilities. Each moment feels like a point of selection, where one outcome becomes the lived experience while others remain unexperienced alternatives. However, it is important to understand that this does not imply a conscious selection between branches. Instead, it reflects how experience is structured within any given timeline. Consciousness does not step outside reality to choose a path. It unfolds within a path, shaped by the same causal processes that define the universe itself. In this sense, the observer is not separate from the timeline, but part of it. Every thought, perception, and memory arises from physical processes occurring within the brain, which itself is part of the universe it observes. This creates a continuous loop where the structure of reality generates the experience of observing reality. Inside an infinite multiverse, each branch contains its own version of this loop. Each version of an observer experiences only the events within its own branch, with no direct access to other branches. From a global perspective, all of these observers exist simultaneously across different timelines. But from a local perspective, each observer experiences only one coherent stream of events. This separation between global structure and local experience is essential for understanding why reality feels unified, despite potentially containing infinite divergence. If all branches were directly perceptible at once, experience would likely become incomprehensible. Instead, consciousness appears structured to process one consistent sequence of events, allowing meaning, memory, and identity to form. This raises another subtle question about continuity. If every moment of experience is part of a branching structure, what maintains the feeling of being the same observer over time? The answer lies in memory and causality. Each moment of consciousness is causally linked to the previous one through physical processes in the brain. Memories preserve traces of earlier states, creating continuity across time within a single branch. Even if other branches contain alternative versions of events, they do not interfere with the continuity of the current experience. This is why identity feels stable, even in a universe that may contain infinite variation. The observer is not a fixed object, but a continuous process. It is a pattern of information unfolding through time, shaped by physical laws and constrained by causality within a single branch of reality. From this perspective, the idea of choosing between universes becomes less about conscious selection and more about natural unfolding. Each branch contains its own version of decision-making, where choices arise from prior conditions and led to subsequent outcomes. The feeling of choosing is part of the internal structure of that branch, not a mechanism that operates across the entire multiverse. This preserves the consistency of causality, while allowing for the existence of multiple divergent histories. Another important implication concerns perception itself. The brain does not experience reality directly as it is. Instead, it constructs a model based on sensory input, memory, and prediction. This internal model is what creates the feeling of a coherent world. In a multiverse framework, each version of an observer constructs its own model of its own branch, without awareness of other possible branches. This creates the experience of a single, stable universe, even when many others may exist beyond perception. As night deepens in the imagination of this cosmic structure, countless observers across countless branches continue their lives without awareness of the broader multiverse surrounding them. Some are beginning their day, others are ending it. Some are making decisions that will shape long futures. Others are resting quietly, unaware of the complexity underlying their experience. Yet in every case, causality continues to operate locally, shaping each moment into the next within the boundaries of a single unfolding path. And within each of those paths, reality feels complete, continuous, and singular, even as infinity stretches silently beyond the limits of perception.